Genesis 27. We'll start Genesis 27 and kind of go into it. Actually, the story is if you've been around church very much, if you've been in church any amount of time, the story is probably very familiar to you. And I really don't have a lot to touch on about it, but we will look at it anyhow. And so it's been like 2 weeks, right? I mean, last week we had the Herb Rivas and the Wisnets here, and then the week before that we didn't have church. So it's been like 3 weeks since we've done anything. So just to bring you up to speed, Genesis chapter 27, we are now in the life of Jacob and Esau, and we've already seen Jacob. And after studying chapter 27, I don't even want to say he stole the birthright, but and I'll get into that here in just a second. But let me say that Esau sold the birthright to Jacob for a pot of stew. So whenever we think of these guys, well, let me just do it. Let me just try a little. It's not a poll, but a little public sample. Jacob. Describe Jacob to me. From what you remember, and I know it might have been a minute or two, but describe Jacob to me. Mama's boy. That's very good. I agree with that. What else?
He's not very honest.
He's not very honest. All right. Someone else. Apparently he's a pretty good cook. apparently he's got that gumbo going. Yep. He's got him a good stew going. What else? What else do you know about Jacob? He's kind of squirrely. What else? This is working perfectly. This is exactly what I was anticipating. These are, yes, sir, Bobby.
This was after a blessing. He wanted a blessing from his father, and he wouldn't let the angel of the Lord go until he got a blessing.
Hey, that's pretty good, actually. He wanted the blessing from his father, obviously, and then when he wrestled with God there at Bethel, and he would not let the angel of the Lord go. He said, "I'm not going to let you go till you bless me." That's a preach right there, brother. All right, so when we think of Jacob, we think of this guy who's kind of sly, kind of deceptive. He was a mama's boy. I would agree with that. He's kind of squirrely. He's just all of these things. He's crafty, I put down here. I put shrewd. He's a deceiver, obviously. These are the ways that we describe Jacob. Now, how would you describe Esau? Manly. What? A dimwit? Yeah. Okay. Pardon? Impatient. All right. Pardon? He was a good hunter.
Probably immature.
Pardon?
Probably immature.
Immature. He was hairy. So Esau was... I think of Esau, he's kind of a man's man. His father was obviously enamored with him, and we'll point that out probably tonight. We'll probably get there, but he was an outdoorsman. He was a hunter. He was, where Jacob hung out in the kitchen with Mama. Esau was out there bow hunting deer. Daddy loved Esau, and Jacob was just kind of there. Here's the problem with all of this, and I've never really thought about it like I'm going to say it tonight until this week when I was studying for what I wanted to say tonight. The Bible never, ever condemns Jacob or Rachel for any of the deception that they performed. Never. Nowhere. I mean, they lied. Well, Jacob lied. Jacob lied Jacob sat right in front of his father and said, I'm your son Esau. He lied. I mean, he just blatantly lied. You know, the Bible never says nothing bad about that. Never. And now I'm not saying it's justified. In fact, I don't know how to even put it into words. But I'll also say something else. Jacob did not steal the blessing. If you remember, back when Rebekah got pregnant with twins and God spoke to her, God clearly told her the blessing was passing through the youngest. The older will serve the younger. Clearly, he told her that the blessing was going to pass through the youngest, which really shouldn't surprise them, because Isaac was the youngest of Abraham, and the blessing passed through him. Now, he was the oldest of Abraham and Sarah, but remember, they had a boy before Ishmael, right? Not they, but Abraham had a boy before Ishmael. And so, clearly, no matter what they did, the blessing was going through Jacob.
Was he somewhat like David? Was he a man after God's heart?
So let's do this. This is my attempt to answer your question. I don't know if it does it exactly or not. So in Genesis chapter 25, verse 27, a little bit back there. And I remember we talked about this just a little bit. That actually does not look like it. Oh, that cannot be what I'm doing to myself. Oh, yeah, it is. It is Genesis chapter 25, verse 27. It says, so the boys grew. Esau was skillful hunter, a man of the field. It says that Jacob was a mild man, dwelling in tents. And I remember when we looked at that passage, because that's been weeks ago now, so you probably forgot. But I looked at that word mild, and I remember talking about that word mild. And that word really, and when I read what someone said it meant, I actually had to look it up. I actually I drug out the Hebrew tools that I have and blew the dust off of them and looked it up. And the word really, it means complete or mature. And so what the Bible is actually saying there about Jacob is that he had a mature character. He had a complete character in God's eyes and in God's ways. In chapter 25, verse 34, about Esau, it says, Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils. He ate and he drank and he arose and he went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So you have this one guy who, in God's eyes, is mature and complete versus his older brother, who's actually is impetuous. Is that a good word? He actually despised his birthright. Now, again, I always drive this part home about him despising his birthright. It wasn't just like his inheritance. In fact, in this chapter 27, he literally cries because he's not getting his inheritance. But to say that he despised his birthright is equated with being the grandson of Abraham. The birthright was more than just sheep and goats and people and land. It was the blessing of God. It was the covenant of God passing through, passing down the line. And so when it says that he despised his birthright, it's saying that he could have cared less about the spiritual things that were set before him. Now, so yeah, I guess to answer your question, Jacob would be more like David. David was a murderer and an adulterer, yet he was a man after God's own heart. And so Jacob is a deceiver and a liar, and yet he had the character in somehow, some way, that God was looking for the spiritual blessing to pass through. It's like I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth, and I feel like I am. Bobby?
Do you think Esau was aware of Abraham's blessing that he would not go through them?
So, that's a good question. Because certainly Rebekah and Isaac knew. They knew that it was supposed to go through Jacob, which really makes me put more blame on Isaac for even trying to bless Esau in the first place. But certainly Rebekah and Isaac knew. Whether Esau and Jacob actually knew, I don't know. That's a good question. It's a good question. Rebekah knew for sure. She for sure knew. And her and Isaac knew. Any other questions? So verses 1 through 5 of chapter 27, it says, "So it came to pass when Isaac was old and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, that he called Esau his older son. And he said to him, 'My son.' And he answered, and he said, 'Here I am.' He said, 'Behold, now I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now therefore, please take your weapons and your quiver and your bow and go out to the field and hunt some game for me and make me savory food such as I love and bring it to me that I may eat it, that my soul may bless you before I die.' Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt game." So, and again, this is the part that bothers me. It's almost like Isaac is going to circumvent what he knows God wants. He knows the blessing is supposed to go to Jacob. But he's telling Esau, go out, kill something, make me a stew, bring it in, I'm going to bless you. And in spite of the fact that he knew it was supposed to go through Jacob, in spite of the fact that Esau didn't even really care about the spiritual aspect of it. Esau didn't care. Did he want to be a king? Yeah, he wanted to be a king. He wanted to have authority over a lot of people. He wanted to own a lot of land. Now, I'm really reading between the lines here, but this is how I feel about it. He wanted to own a lot of land. He wanted to have a lot of sheep and a lot of goats. He wanted to be rich. He wanted all that. But as far as the spiritual aspects of it, the aspects of it that were from God, Jehovah God, he could have cared less. In spite of all that, and even in spite of the fact that Esau had sold it to Jacob. I mean, and I don't know if Isaac knew that or not, but anyhow, he was bent on blessing Esau. And actually, I wrote it down somewhere, and we'll get to it. Probably not tonight, so it'll be a good reminder next week when we get to it. He told him to go make something for him. In one of the other chapters, it talks about how chapter 25, verse 8, verse 28, chapter 25, it says that Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game. That he loved Esau because he liked to eat his food. And so now here he is again asking Esau to go kill him something and cook him something. It's just, he was being led by his own appetites in a way. So in verses 6 through 10, Rebekah hatches a plan. So Rebekah spoke to Jacob her son, saying, "Indeed, I heard your father speak to Esau, your brother, saying, 'Bring me game. Make savory food for me so that I may eat it, and I will bless you in the presence of the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me from there 2 choice kids of the goats, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father, that he may eat it, and he may bless you before his death.'" So Rachel begins to hatch this plan out, and she says, "You get out there, you get a couple goats, you kill them, bring them here, you kill them. I'm going to cook it up." And then she's even going to come up with the plan, we'll see in a little bit later, to put the skins on his arms so he feels hairy. I know Carol had asked me several weeks back about was Rebekah at fault or was there some kind of fault in her for devising this plan that's kind of deceitful, right? And my initial response is, well, yeah, But again, like I said, as I began to study it, the Bible never criticizes her for that. Now look, there are other times in the Bible where people lied and the Bible didn't criticize them. The Hebrew midwives. in Egypt when Pharaoh said, "You kill all the Hebrew babies. You kill them all." And so but when he questioned them about it, they said, "Oh, well, Hebrew women are strong and they have the babies before we can even get there." They just lied. But they were saving the race. I mean, and I'm not trying to say it's okay if you can justify it. Only God can make that determination. I'm just saying, Rahab was deceitful among her own people. But God used it and used her. So so here's what I think, honestly, Carol. Was there any fault to Rebekah's? I think that Jacob was going to get the blessing one way or another because that was God's plan. I think that she did some deceitful stuff and she's going to pay for it. Here's how she's going to pay for it. She's going to send Jacob away to save his life. She's never going to see him again. She's never going to see him again. He's going to have to leave because of this incident, and she will never see him again. And the only son she will have left in her home is the one that she kind of treated wrong. So in a way, she's going to reap the fruit of this little thing. But
Well, how else would it have come to pass? Because
I don't know.
honestly, Isaac wasn't going to listen to Rachel.
Right.
She's going to say no. You can't get this.
I don't know. But I do believe that God ordained that it was going through Jacob. It was going through Jacob. I mean, yeah. Right. And because again, like I said, Isaac seems determined to go against what God wanted. So, it's a real dilemma. Again, I just need to say what they lied. I mean, Jacob blatantly lies. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. They were certainly deceptive in the way they treated Isaac. But the Bible never, ever, ever speaks ill of either one of them in that way. So who am I to, right? I mean, I don't know. She may have felt that she had to do. She may have felt that she had to do something. We're just about there. I'm going to stop there. Because this is a good little story, and it'll prompt a lot of discussion like that. Got to put that mark so I know where I stop, so I'm not lost. Jacob and Esau. I don't know. All right. Anything before we close? All right.